Here's my commentary on the Saints Row reboot. The Saints Row reboot was woke, and the bugginess in the game was awful. The quality of life for the gamers was awful. Awful, awful, awful. And when I played the game, it was buggy. It was buggy. And when it was all buggy, and let's not forget, the gangs or factions are not nearly as memorable as the factions from the previous games. It was all awful and dog shit, and the enemies are so incredibly bland. I mean, come on. Saints Row 1 had memorable factions. Saints Row 2 had memorable factions. Saints Row 3 had memorable factions. Saints Row 4 only had the Zen. Saints Row Got Out of Hell had demons. But Saints Row Reboot had incredibly bland enemy factions. Like, come on. And the enemy factions are beaten. Are all already beaten during 1/3 of the game. Already beaten. Once you kill off their leaders, they're done for. Already done for. Already beaten before finishing the game. That's the problem with that game. Not that Kevin was bisexual. That's also a problem. Not that Eli was a nerdy character that was not in any gang until the Saints formed it during the beginning 1/3 of the game. And Nina, once you fuck up their car, they're nothing, but if you kill them, they're dead. And the only little emotional thingamajig about that is, no! Not my car that I was working on. Not my mama's beloved car that I swore that I'd take care of. Really, Nina? Is that the only thing you cared about? And let's not forget, Kevin was a part of the Idols. And he got betrayed. He and the Idols started all kinds of crap. Sergio, with his egotistical douche lord kind of crap that he's been on, wound up going and trying to ruin all likelihood of the main character still being with Marshall. And then Atticus goes and fires the main character. Newsflash! That's what happens! You make an enemy out of somebody who used to work for you! Then you become the enemy faction! The enemy faction! Because you chose the Codex over keeping an employee happy. And then the main character, Nina, Eli, and Kevin form the Saints. Then start rounding up Nuali, and then going on the heist, and then Sergio shows up, and then bam, raids the same train, or tries to raid the same train, and then all Hades breaks loose, and the Saints, along with Nuali, goes butting heads with the Los Panteros. Great writing. And then the one moment that the main character of Saints Row Reboot had the opportunity to Sergio, Nuali comes in, knocks out the main character, and sticks the Judas knife into Sergio's heart. But the Saints, the main Saints character, or the main character of the Saints, from all the previous Saints Row games, would have jumped in and offed a gang leader such as Sergio of the Los Panteros. And then the Collective, which is a small group of leaders, of a neo-anarchist gang. Like, ugh. Even the Deckers from Saints Row the Third are more badass than the idols. Even the Ronin were more badass than the idols. Even the West Side Rollers are more badass than the idols. That's how bland and utterly useless the idols actually are as an enemy faction. At least the enemy factions from the previous Saints Row games put up much more of a fight against the Saints. And their leaders are way more memorable than that of the Collective. And Sergio is not as memorable. The only memorable enemy faction leaders that are memorable in the Saints Row Reboot was Atticus Marshall and Nuali. That's it. And the very first ever enemy faction in the Saints Row Reboot was the Nuali, a red-colored gang. That's a piss-poor attempt at mixing the Brotherhood, the Los Carnales, and the Morning Star. A piss-poor excuse of mixing all three previous rival factions. And let's not forget, all likely retrospective about that is where Saints Row Reboot got wrong. In the original Saints Row 1, there were more than just 4 Saints. More than 4 of them. There was more than 4 of them. There was Julius, Troy, Johnny Gat, Lynn, Aisha, and Playa. And yeah, if we had a proper reboot or get the proper prequel to Saints Row 1, we could see how Aisha broke from the Saints. Then working for the enemy faction, making the enemy faction money. And also having Will. But yet Will, the Saints Row 1 pimp that was wearing purple, was replaced by Helmers in the second game. Why was that? I don't know. Maybe Will dropped his flags when all of the original Saints from Saints Row 1 either A, died from gang wars in Stillwater, B, got arrested by Troy, who was an undercover cop in the Saints, in the first Saints Row game. But here's the thing. Troy was playing both sides of the law in Saints Row 1 and Saints Row 2. But here's the thing. Aisha, there was still more than 4 Saints in the Saints Row 2. More than 4 of them. There was Helmers. There was Playa. There was Carlos. There was Johnny Gat. There was Aisha. There was Pierce. There was Shondi. Those were the main Saints in Saints Row 2. But Aisha died. But in Saints Row 1, there was also Dex. And guess what? Dex betrayed the Saints at the end of Saints Row 1. And the crucial plot point of Saints Row 2 was that the boss was supposed to go at the end of Saints Row 2 was supposed to hunt down Dex. Was supposed to go to Steelport and hunt down Dex. And Dex was supposed to be a member of the Steelport Syndicate, hiding out amongst the ranks. Because that's why half of the Luchadors gang is African American. And half of the Deckers are African American. And that's why half of the Deckers that were black and half of the Luchadors that were Black would have been a Steelport Dex gang. But here's how it was supposed to go down. Dex having his own gang in Steelport. All of the Morningstar taken and being in the New Colvin while downtown was all Dex's territory. Dex having his own gang after hightailing it out of Stillwater, and then a few short years between Centro 2 and Centro the Third, Dex gets his gang well established in Steelport, and then bam! During that entire time, and which would lead to a proper Central 4 game. Dex taking over in like where the luchadors were destroyed, and the Deckers were destroyed, and the Morningstar was destroyed. All that was left of the Steelport Syndicate that was left were the specialists of the Deckers, the specialists of the luchadors, the specialists of the Morningstar, and the Brutes, all coming together to making up of Dex's street gang. In the fourth, and then new factions come in. And at the end of Saints Row 4, the boss retires and a new subsidiary faction takes over, wearing the purple, in which would lead up to Saints Row 5. The new faction, or the spiritual successors of the 3rd Street Saints, would have called themselves the Jacks. Would have taken over where the Saints retired. And they would have had their boss or what have you. New factions pop up in Steelport. Steelport going through a Saints Row 2 route of having a Saints Row 5 spin-off, a proper Saints Row 5 spin-off, where the Jacks finally helped, or where they talked about how they helped the original Saints that ran Steelport for a while, helped them cripple the Dex crew, and helping the boss finally kill Dex for betraying the Saints in Saints Row 1 and ran like a coward at the end of Saints Row 2. But how? How was one plot line that was dumped on its head like a baby crossbreed with a sack of potatoes, and dropped a plot line a B plot line, and then have like Central the Third happen. And Central 5 would have happened if Volition went that route. A proper Central 5 ending, like respectfully retiring the old Saints, where the old Saints can retire with respect to the characters, and the new Saints, or the new spiritual successors of the Saints, goes and takes back Steelport from the new enemy gangs, from the new gangs that have taken over. And then the Jacks could be mirroring that of their spiritual predecessors. And all 5 protagonists are all in the same biological family. And I've explained that on my old YouTube channel. And adding that in, the Centro 5 would have should have been made and had 5 DLCs. 5 DLCs. But sadly, as time went on, Saints Row 2022 came out. It was an abysmal failure. A lot of people thought that Saints Row the Third was an awful game. They were proven wrong. THQ went out of business by the time Saints Row 4 was in development. And when Deep Silver got half of the license and was sharing 1/3 of the license with Koch Media, and the parent company Embracer Group having all 3/3 ownership of the Saints Row IP. And as time went on, Saints Row 4 did not do like the very franchise justice, because a lot of people was questioning Volition. It was all downhill. Then Got Out of Hell shows up as a Saints Row spin-off. And then Agents of Mayhem happened. That was abysmal. And it lost Volition almost all of their financial earnings, and then Saints Row 2022 happened, and then no more Volition. And yet the original director and the original creative director of the original Saints Row, the first Saints Row, is reportedly to have been coming back, or wants to come back and do a Saints Row 1977 prequel to the Saints Row 1 game. And it leaves small hope that Embracer Group is going to actually be able to like greenlight the whole project. bringing back some of those, or all of the Saints Row fans who have been pretty much jaded at this point. But sadly, I don't know if the Saints Row IP is gonna like bounce back from an Agents of Mayhem, Got Out of Hell, Saints Row 2022 slump. Got Out of Hell. Well, the 3 games that Volition made that pretty much screwed up the franchise. Saints Row 2022, Agents of Mayhem, and Got Out of Hell. And Got Out of Hell, what was missing a crap ton of cutscenes, and relying on a purple virtual book to fill out and to pad out missing cutscenes and missing fights with all of the enemy factions that ended up being hell. And you never got to see any of it animated or any of it being in fully rendered cutscenes or anything like that. You never got to see any of that. Never got to see any of the scenes fully cinematic scenes, but are put on virtual paper pages in the Saints Row Got Out of Hell Codex. And oh boy, even though that you could do anything in that game, it still lacked. It was still the absolute blandest game. Like, as time goes on, games like these are going to get even more bland at this rate. Creatively bankrupt studios making boring, bland, uncreative, creatively bankrupt slop. But if this future Saints Row project brings the franchise back from the dead, all Hades would freeze over. And if it would turn out to be a good game, then Hades would definitely freeze over. Hades would definitely freeze over. And I would be those who are naysayers who said Saints Row will never come back. Me and all those naysayers will be forced against our will to eat our words if Saints Row 1977, which would be a prequel to Saints Row 1, was to materialize and get released. We would be forced against our will to eat our words about being a bunch of naysayers that Saints Row was never going to come back. And hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for Saints Row coming back. I'm all for Saints Row crawling its way out of the underworld, out of the grave, out of the fires of Hades, to come back, bursting out of the grave like a phoenix. I wouldn't mind it. been playing Saints Row the Third and Saints Row 4 just to pass the time until that project is on store shelves. But if it was to be on store shelves for the PlayStation 5, guess what? I'm going to be buying it. And yeah. And who knows? Maybe what little bit of merch market that Saints Row had with the collector's editions and all the other stuff that was Saints Row merch. The Saints Row merch would definitely hit store shelves. We would have Saints Row action figures. Saints Row action figures that would be as fully posable as this Shawn Michaels action figure. Saints Row action figures being like this articulated, being made and put on store shelves. And I would be one of those to buy officially licensed Saints Row action figures that's been made. Yep. Would have added them to my collection if they were to go that route. But sadly, no signs or evidence or hints of the Saints Row brand or the Saints Row franchise being massive. And I'm talking massive in marketing to having every, and I mean every, form and variation of the merchandise being made. If they were to go that route or go the WWE route and stay consistent while simultaneously doing a smoother than silk covered butter transition from one era smoothly transitioning, just like the WWE games did that smoother than spider silk butter transition through various eras. We would have seen Saints Row grow and still have a massive player base. More massive than my collection of action figures. More massive than my collection of books. Combined. More massive than what's left of my DVD collection. Combined with my book collection, my action figure collection. Due to that metric. And shit, I'd have had like a Saints Row pillow with all the Saints Row characters printed on the pillow. All of them. all the maps, all of the factions. And if Volition hadn't have shut down, and Volition would have had a tag that would say officially licensed Volition merch. If that was to be the case. And Saints Row posters of every faction you could think of in the Saints Row franchise. All of them. But sadly, there's no Saints Row action figures. Not one of them at all. But hey, I still have high hopes that there will be at least a Sean D action figure out there somewhere. A fully posable Sean D action figure. It's very bad and very sad that we have Fortnite action figures and Fortnite being more popular. Fortnite is more popular than Saints Row ever was, because it's a live service looter shooter, and there's merch being made. And you see, if Saints Row had have done that, we would have seen all Saints Row costumes, all of them, lining Halloween stores with the props or weaponry that was in Saints Row, all weaponry lined up in the prop section of like the Halloween stores, and having prop Saints Flow cans and all that stuff. All of that stuff. Not just the 3rd Street Saints themselves, but the rival factions getting brand recognition, and the prop weapons, the prop parts of the outfits of the rival factions, and including the Saints, being so popular in Halloween stores, just like every other franchise out there. And even the followers, even the followers of the Saints Row factions getting real costumes made about them. And shit, even a official Saints Row comic book and a Saints Row graphic novel would have been made. And showing every single follower, not just the main members of each faction, but every single follower having names, backstories to them. But that's just me. I just don't know. Saints Row was supposed to get a movie, and that movie idea never materialized. And I don't know what energy drink company would have done a Saints Row promotion, having Saints Flow be a real world energy drink heavily based off of the fictional energy drink in the Saints Row franchise. But sadly, I'm never going to be able to see that day. Who knows? Maybe that day might happen when I'm long gone. When I'm long gone. When I'm long gone, that'll probably be the day when all that happens. If toys, if action figures are still a thing by the time I'm long gone, who knows how long the toy industry will be around. Seems like all the toys that I could possibly get are from flea markets and thrift stores. I'm just saying, we really need to get that franchise out of the grave and back to work. But hey, that's my 2 cents. And that's my commentary on Saints Row Reboot.